What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Junkyard Dawgcast, a instant reaction episode of the Junkyard Dawgcast. I'm your host, Jordan Hill. Got Ben Wolk with us on this Saturday afternoon, and we've got a G-Day game to recap. The red team winning at 34-17. We're going to talk about that spring game, what we made of how the Bulldogs played in Sanford Stadium, who stood out, maybe some of the positions that we have questions about going into the rest of the offseason. Talk about that. We'll talk about Georgia adding an in-state defensive back before the scrimmage got started. And we'll talk about whatever the hell is going on in Knoxville, Tennessee right now with the Nico Iamaleava situation with him getting ready to move on. So action-packed episode. I would highly encourage, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to Dogs 24/7. Also, wherever you get your podcast, Junkyard Dawgcast there. So packed episode and actually having some football to talk about. So should be a fun one, and I hope you guys will stick around. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Junkyard Dawgcast. I'm your host, Jordan Hill. Got Ben Wolk with us on this Saturday afternoon for an instant reaction podcast. We're going to be talking about G-Day in Athens, the red team beating the black team 34-17. We're going to talk about what stood out there. We're talking about Georgia adding 2026 safety Keelin Jones. He committed a short while before G-Day got underway. We're going to talk about what the hell's going on in Knoxville, Tennessee with Nico Iamaleava, him getting ready to move on. Action-packed episode. I want to start off, if you're listening to this podcast, shout out Stephen Fowler for the intro music. We're changing it up to End Spring Ball, and this will be our intro and outro music to get 2025 really underway. But let's start, Ben, with where we were this afternoon, back between the hedges. Before we get into the scrimmage, hey man, what was it like being down there on the sideline, getting just a little bit of taste of what we're going to find later in the fall?
You know, it was a beautiful day. It was perfect. It was a great day. Great lighting for photos for people that might have hypothetically been taking photos during the course of the game. Just, you know, I'd say football is back about 35 times a year, and I really mash a lot of it into the first couple weeks of August and September. But I always throw one out there here in this middle of April, like being out there, spring game. I hope they don't do away with G-Day. I hope that spring games are here to stay because it's a nice little teaser for the fall that you get in the spring. And, it was also great getting to see some guys for the first time that we haven't really seen in action much. So a lot for us to take away from the game as well.
Definitely. And let's jump right into it. The red team, which was led by the first team offense, they win today 34-17 against the black team. The black team working with the first team defense. A lot to cover just across the board. I'll kind of go rapid fire and then give it to you, Ben. But, quarterbacks obviously were a position that we wanted to watch very closely. Thought both quarterbacks started kind of slow, but you could kind of tell by that second quarter, both guys, Gunnar Stockton, Ryan Puglisi, really came into their own. Gunnar Stockton ends the scrimmage 17-34, 309, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. The 1 interception to Daniel Harris, who made an interception on a pass intended for Colby Young. Ryan Puglisi winds up 23 of 49, 222 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Wound up playing with the first team offense a little bit in the third quarter and played really well. Led them down the field. I believe he wound up scoring a touchdown on a pass to London Humphreys. So a lot to like there with the quarterbacks. Receivers, I think if you're a Georgia fan, you should be really excited just based on how the receivers played. Colby Young had 1 touchdown, nearly had another. Initially had the touchdown that I'm referring to, and then they looked at it and said, all right, you didn't get a foot down. But good showing from him. London Humphreys has 2 touchdowns. Not sure if they named an MVP, but London Humphreys made a good case there. But C.J. Wiley with a nice catch, Sakovi White with a touchdown, and 2 back-to-back really nice receptions. Good play there. Bo Walker, Chauncey Bowens, thought they both looked really good. Feel good about where Georgia's running backs are. Looking at the defense, I wanted to look at these numbers. There are a few guys I thought really stood out. CJ Allen just ho-hum 8 tackles. I think that's just sort of what that inside linebacker position does. But on the second team defense, that red defense, Justin Williams, 9 tackles, outstanding performance, 3 tackles for loss, a pass breakup. He was somebody, Ben, that I really looked at going into the scrimmage as someone I wanted to watch closely, and he played really well. Some other guys, Chris Cole made a lot of plays. I mentioned Daniel Harris with the interception. Dominic Kelly, I think about it, wasn't all that long ago that he was on our show on signing day and talking about, reclassified and, stepping into a big situation. And he has an interception. He has another pass breakup. I thought he looked like he met the moment well. We kind of take it piece by piece, Ben, but I want to start with the quarterbacks because that's, what everybody wanted to talk about, what everyone has wanted to discuss throughout the spring. What stood out to you from Gunner and Ryan, and where do you kind of put this competition as we close out spring?
I mean, it feels like it's Gunnar Stockton's job, and it's felt that way. I don't think that there's really much conversation about that necessarily. I think that everyone was eager, who hasn't seen Ryan Puglisi perform much in a setting like this, was eager to see what he looked like. He did some some good things. The completion percentages obviously aren't going to be where Georgia wanted them. Gunner's only interception of the day was really just a great play by Daniel Harris there in the corner of the end zone. My photography of it suggests that it might not have actually been an interception. I think it might have been bobbled as he was going out of bounds, but that's neither here nor there. But all that to say, I thought Gunner did what you would have expected him to do. I was going to ask you, you said that you don't think that there was an MVP given out and that London Humphreys gave a good case. You knew more statistically because I was down on the field, what was going on through the course of the game. Who were your candidates for MVP? Because I had thrown out Gunner before the game as a possibility.
Yeah, Gunner, I thought played well enough to have a chance to get it 309, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Just looking at the stats really quickly, London Humphreys, 4 receptions, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns. I really like Bo Walker, 8 carries, 44 yards, didn't find the end zone, but those guys, and then Justin Williams, who I mentioned, 9 tackles, or CJ Allen, 8 tackles. So I really like London Humphreys for what he did with 4 receptions and 77 yards, but we know how much they love the quarterbacks. Gunner might have taken it home with 309 and 2 scores.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's I haven't done a deep dive on the stats of this game the way that you have, so I'm definitely less equipped to talk about it in that respect than you are. But we're just looking at Gunner, 17 at 34, 309, 2 touchdowns, and that 1 interception being one that I think, under review could have gone either way. And it was just a great play by Daniel Harris as well. That's the kind of day you want your quarterback to have if he's going to be your starting quarterback. And if you're still wondering, what is this guy going to look like as your first year starting quarterback? I mean, he has an unbelievable command of the offense. I thought that they would take some more shots. I mean, in the second half there, they started to take some shots down the field, but I would have thought with Gunner that they would have tried to take a few more shots down the field than they did. I thought in Ryan Puglisi's case, they gave him an opportunity to extend the ball down the field. The completion rate wasn't where they would have liked it to be probably, but he took some chances downfield, and I think you can see the upside for both of them. And I'll say, hey, even beyond those two, Hezekiah Millender gets in there, has a 15-yard run with his legs. Coulter Ginn, I think he only threw 2 passes, but they were both completions. One went for a touchdown. So, look, the quarterbacks, I don't think are the area of concern in Athens right now. And, given the conversation that's going on at other places around the country right now, I think Georgia's feeling pretty good today about what the quarterback situation is in Athens, Georgia.
Looking elsewhere, trying to see what else really caught my attention. I mentioned the running backs. I loved what they showed. I think Georgia should feel really good. Running back was a position where we kind of wondered if they might go in the portal. I mean, based on what I saw today, I don't think they will unless there's just a all SEC first team caliber back go in, and I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. Really, Colby Young, I mentioned this before we started recording. Colby Young and London Humphreys, 2 guys that transferred in before last season. I think you can really tell what an advantage it is to have that year at Georgia under their belt. Thought they both played well. London Humphreys with 2 touchdowns. Colby with 1, nearly had 2. Like it from that front. What about you? And anything else just across the board that stood out to you that caught your attention from the spring game?
Well, I echo what you said at running back. I think a lot of it is dependent on who enters the portal, but Bo Walker brings an element that Georgia needs at running back, and I thought he had some great runs today. He doesn't necessarily look like a freshman in the way that he moves out there. Look, he's short in stature. He's not a small guy, but he is short in stature, and that's, I have someone today brought up DeAndre Swift, not comparing him to DeAndre Swift, but just saying when you look at them physically, like he is not like height is not his advantage, but he had a couple of great runs today that showed you that he can contribute as a freshman. We mentioned in a scrimmage report a couple of weeks ago, Chauncey Bowen's getting involved in the screen game. Happened again today. He catches a screen. I don't know exactly how long that one went for. I'm looking at it now. I think it was 14 yards. So, I mean, not like a huge play, but it picked up a first down. Seems like that's a way that Chauncey Bowens is going to be getting used, and I think that he is going to be in the rotation maybe more than I would have expected as a sophomore when he was coming in that 2024 class. At receiver, I thought Colby Young had a great day. Like, I think you felt pretty early on like that was a piece that was missing from Georgia's 2024 roster. Like, you can almost see the drop off in Carson Beck's confidence after week 4. And, we can get into all the off the field stuff that caused that to be the case. But from a football standpoint right now, like having Colby Young back is critical. And there's been so much talk about Noah Thomas, who showed some separation. He showed some signs today, but I just think it's fascinating. Like I almost think I thought when Noah Thomas came in, it's a foregone conclusion. He's probably going to leapfrog Colby Young on the depth chart. I don't necessarily know that that's the case. Like I think that Colby is going to be a staple of this offense. You mentioned Sokovie White. Those two plays, this is one of those things where it's like, I wish I had my phone out videoing certain things when I did, just because I know a lot of people aren't going to be able to see it. I'm sure both of Sokovie's catches will be a highlight somewhere that people will be able to see. But he had back-to-back catches, I think, with Ellis Robinson in coverage both times. Very well covered. At least the first one, very well covered by Ellis Robinson. I can't remember who was in coverage on the second one, but both high-point contested catches. And it's so funny because we've talked about Sokovie White in the past where, like Bo Walker, height is not Sokovie White's advantage. Because of that, I think people tend to say, oh, he's short. That means he's small. Sokovie White is not small. Sokovie White is short. He'll be the first to admit to you that. But physically, when he runs his routes and when he's creating separation and when he's using his hands to hand fight with these cornerbacks, like he is a well-built guy and he is a football player. And he high points the ball. He has an unbelievable vertical leap that plays to his advantage as well. Funny little story. His mom was actually sitting in the corner of that end zone where he scored the touchdown. She'd been there all game. She went over to the sideline to do something. I don't know when. He makes those back-to-back catches and she runs back over there. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Like I was just over here and I missed it. But you could tell how excited people were for Sokovie White. Like even after the game, I saw two people from the opposite sideline. First thing they did when the game ended was sprint straight over to Sokovie to celebrate with him after the play that he had made as well. So definitely a team favorite that is interesting because it's going to be hard for him to find reps at that position. Zachariah Branch has a great day, has a great contested catch down on the goal line with Janelle Aguero in coverage. Jeremy Bell gets in there in the slot. He scores a touchdown and makes some explosive plays. I believe Janelle Aguero also in coverage in that situation as well. But Slots had a great day, and there's only so many snaps to go around. But, those are, I know that this is me speaking a lot just on the offensive side of the ball, but that right wide receiver position, there's a lot of depth. I think Georgia should feel really, really good about where it's at, but then it becomes complicated. Who fits in, who gets how many reps. It's not going to be an easy decision for James Coley and other offensive decision makers to make.
Yeah, I wanted to hit on a couple of the guys you talked about just because Lawson Lucky. I'm going to tell you, Ben, I think Lawson's going to be a go-to guy to talk to, especially after these games. But a couple of quotes. You mentioned Chauncey Bowens. This is just part of Lawson's quote. Quote, I love the way Chauncey runs the rock. That's the reason to be excited there. And then I asked him about Colby Young, and he described Colby Young as a contested catch monster. And I think that Colby's going to be a guy that you see a lot in the red zone. And again, those were two shots. Gunnar had a deep throw to him that he just couldn't get a foot down. And then a little bit later, Ryan Puglisi hit him on a touchdown and made a big play right there in the end zone, right at like very barely into the end zone, and Colby caught it and scored. I wanted to give a couple of injury updates as my dog freaks out
Shout out
downstairs.
Maya.
Appreciate that. Noah Thomas, it sounded like kind of got banged up. Wanted to mention, see exactly what Kirby Smart said on that front. Um, let's see.
While you're digging that up, I will also share, so because I just spewed so much on the offensive side. I will say on the defensive side, you mentioned Justin Williams. He had a great day. I think that it's so funny because he's like the fourth linebacker. It's going to be special what he's going to be able to do. But you also, I mean, I had the defensive stats pulled up earlier. I think the red team had 13 pass deflections. I think the black team had 3. I think all 3 on the black team were from the front 7. And I think on the red team, Dominic Kelly had 1, Daniel Harris had a couple, and I want to say that Adrian Maddox but it was like 5 or 6 on the red team. So I want to say like close to 9 of the 16 pass deflections were front 7, like balls batted down to the line of scrimmage, which a lot of people are going to go to the quarterbacks are getting the ball batted down and they're going to be concerned on that front. I think at a certain point, you just got to look, you got some ball hawks in your front 7, and you don't hear that phrase used a lot of times with defensive linemen and linebackers. But I think when you look at Georgia's front 7, they got a lot of dudes that are going to get their hands on the ball this season.
Yeah, on the injury front, what I was looking for, Kirby Smart said Cole Spear, wasn't sure if he had a high ankle or lower leg. He went down during that scrimmage. Noah Thomas has an AC sprain. I think that happened probably early in that scrimmage, but he talked like he didn't think that was something to be concerned about going into the rest of the offseason. And Quintavious Johnson also hurt his ankle during that scrimmage, but I think on the whole, they feel pretty good there. Other guys, I want to try to reel off the top of my head, sort of newcomers. You mentioned Zachariah Branch. He had that big catch. I thought the best catch of the day was CJ Wiley. I don't know if you got a great look at that. Had the one-handed catch. Again, like I think it's fair to say, like, embarrassment of riches with this receiver room, because like you said, how are they going to get all these guys on the field? But I think they'll find ways to work guys in there. Elsewhere, I don't know if Elijah Griffin really had any statistics, but he was bringing a lot of pressure, had 1 tackle. J.J. Hanna, I thought, played really well because he was in there really early on that second team defense. Jordan Thomas, I think he had a couple of pass breakups. Like you said, the defensive front played really well. We mentioned Dominic Kelly earlier, really impressed there. Though Kirby did point out, okay, there was a miscommunication with the route on that interception. So basically, slow your roll. Again, I think a successful scrimmage. Again, to the point I was just making, I think they came out fairly healthy. They held out several guys, but none of them were really a surprise. Anyone else we need to shout out from the scrimmage?
Well, I did want to shout out Dom Kelly just because, this is his first time people are really getting to see him. Obviously a friend of the program, so we always got to give a shout out to him. To Kirby's point, like I wondered what had been said about that because it was so clear. Like it was like one of those plays where you're like, if you're not paying attention, you're just like, Ryan Puglisi, what are you doing? And it was so obvious. Like clearly there was a miscommunication there because it was just such a, it was a layup of an interception for Dom, but still makes the play, returns it, gets to throw on the Savage pads. Cool moment for him. And he had some other pass breakups throughout the game as well. He's rocking the 24, a lot to live up to with Malachi Starks leaving that behind. But in his first showing, at the very least, I think he showed some great signs for a guy that was a reclass guy. And I don't think you're ever really expecting incoming freshman early enrollees who reclassified to be making plays in the spring game. So the fact that he says a lot about him.
Yeah, man, I mentioned this on Twitter. He's supposed to be in his junior year of high school, getting ready for his senior year right now. Like that's just absurd. A few other new guys: Zion Branch, 7 tackles. I think he got caught up in coverage a couple times. I wouldn't say it was a perfect performance, but 7 tackles, nothing to wave away. Adrian Maddox, who you mentioned earlier, 5 tackles, a sack, a tackle for loss, and a pass breakup. And then a guy that I noticed a little bit earlier than I necessarily expected, Chase Linton. 3 tackles, 2 pass breakups, and a couple of his plays came right before halftime when the second team offense was trying to drive down and at least get some points. Chase Linton played really well right there.
That room's thin, man. Darren Kenigbon is banged up right now. Isaiah Gibson has been out at times throughout the spring. Quintavious Johnson's young. He looks explosive. Quintavious Johnson looks like a guy that can be what Georgia wants him to be. But you mentioned it. I mean, Chase Linton is being asked, and he looks the part. And I think that he's shown a lot of really great signs, but I think he's being asked to do a lot more earlier than they would have been expecting to ask him to do. And so if there's a position that I think Georgia looks portal, like that feels like the position group that makes the most sense to me. Now, whether the option that they want is out there, Georgia's not going to, we've said this a million times. Georgia's not going to take anybody just to take somebody. But if the right option presents itself, like that feels like the position group where you don't want to have to be asking freshmen to step up and make plays sort of, above their weight class, for lack of a better phrase. That said, Chase Linton, there's a lot to like about him. Another friend of the program as well.
Absolutely, and we gotta shout out those guys who took the time and popped on the show back on National Signing Day. All right, Ben, before we wrap up spring practice and G Day, any parting thoughts, anything you learned or anything you're kind of concerned with this team as we go through, what's essentially the rest of the offseason?
It's funny because when we talked about this, like, what are you looking at the most heading into G Day? I talked about the safeties and how I think the safety position and the star position, like, we need answers to understand exactly what this Georgia defense is going to be capable of. And the funny part about it is I don't know that I come out of G-Day with any clearer answers. Like, I thought Adrian Maddox did some things that you could like today. I thought Jaden Harris did some things that you could like. Ja'Cory Thomas ends up being the name that we just never talk about in all of this, even though I think he's maybe positioned himself to be the guy next to KJ Bolden. Like, I think he's set himself up probably to be that guy over these transfers. Janelle Aguero will be the star for Georgia, especially on first and second down, the things that he does, putting his hat up in the run game. But he got exposed a couple of times on third downs today. And whether that is a reoccurring theme or whether that was a today thing, I think Georgia coaches are going to have to look at the film and make the determination on that. But I just think that that's the position group, not, the star safety dynamic is going to be what determines whether, as thin as Georgia's defensive line is, the talent is there, the playmakers are there, the linebacking group core speaks for itself. Honestly, Daniel Harris had a great day today. Dalen Everett we didn't get to see, but Dalen Everett is, so I thought Ellis Robinson did some things. DeMello Jones did some things that you like. They both got a couple of times, and honestly, they had some receivers make some ridiculous plays against them a couple of times as well. But I think you look at that safety group and the star position. If Georgia gets that figured out, it can be a Kirby Smart caliber defense that we're accustomed to seeing. If they don't get answers like that, I think third downs could be really painful at times for Georgia fans, just based on some of the things that we saw today and the ability for Georgia wide receivers to take advantage of some of the guys in Georgia's secondary on third down.
Yeah, Ja'Cory Thomas was the starting safety alongside KJ Bolden, as you mentioned. I think right now he leads that competition, though I'm not convinced that's completely wrapped up. Daniel Harris played really well, as you mentioned. I think a lot of people are really freaking out about Ellis Robinson and, he can't win this job and all this stuff. I think we're going to see a rotation at corner with Dalen and Daniel Harris, the first guys up, but Ellis and probably DeMello Jones too, kind of making their case for it as well. Again, you mentioned Janelle Aguero kind of struggling, and like you acknowledge that as a coach. I'm putting a lot of stock, Ben, in I think this receiver room is just there's just not going to be very many secondaries that can do anything with these guys, and you want your defensive backs to play better. But if I say I have one takeaway out of today, it's just I think Georgia is sitting pretty when it comes to this receiver room.
Well, and I think in particular, like in defense of, maybe those couple of opportunities that were missed for Janelle Aguero on third down today, like he's matched up against Zachariah Branch in many cases. He's matched up against Sokovia White. Jeremy Bell, it sounds crazy to say, but like Jeremy Bell is one of the most explosive players on Georgia's team at any position on either side of the ball. He's working with the kick return and punt return units as well. So like there is a dynamic athleticism that Jeremy Bell brings. So I think it does say a lot about how deep the room is, and especially at slot, just some of the talent that they have there. Like Sokovia White and Jeremy Bell's names are not the names that are getting brought up first thing when people are talking about Georgia's wide receiver room, but they are guys that nobody wants to be matched up against because they're hell to deal with.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Again, I want to encourage you guys, take advantage of our 50% off sale over at Dogs 24/7, especially right around the spring. We're going to have a ton of content going forward. I know Ben will have all kinds of good stuff from who visited on Saturday as they continue to make their decisions, and Georgia fights hard to put together another strong class of 2026. Looking to have intel as well on men's basketball. I know they had some visitors in town. And that'll be something to keep an eye on too. Georgia baseball, as we speak, playing Arkansas, a big home series there at Foley Field for the Bulldogs. A lot to talk about, even though spring practice has now come to its conclusion. We're going to take a quick break, come back, talk about Georgia adding to that 2026 class, and talk a little bit about Nico Iamaleava. All right, folks, if you've been following along over on the Junkyard and subscribe to Dogs 24/7, Ben was teasing that we were going to have some good recruiting news on Saturday, and we got it about 10:30 a.m. In Keelin Jones, the three-star safety from Sprayberry High School, committing to Georgia. A big addition to this 2026 class, 6'1", 185. A guy that, Ben, as we talked about before, it seems like Georgia really honed in on and maybe kind of, got a look at and really liked their scouting of him and what they feel like he can bring a little bit earlier than most folks. And we talked about this as well, Ben, that it seems like G-Day always seems to give us a new commit for Georgia. Last year it was Darren Akinakbon, and now it's Keelin Jones. How did this kind of come together with Georgia and Keelin Jones, and what do you think of the recruit?
Well, yeah, the only thing I didn't find a way to do was how I tried to scheme my way into getting a predicted commit on the Thursday episode that had nothing to do with recruiting, just so that I could drop this in there and add a predicted commit win against you. But I used my better judgment on that one. I didn't want to pull a fast one over on you like that. But Keelin, great player. I know what happens when a guy is a three-star recruit and is like the 37th ranked safety in the country or whatever he is on 24/7 Sports. And like, I know people say, who cares, whatever. And I think that the Georgia world does a better job than most of not doing that, just because of experiences with Chris Smith and Javon Bullard. Like, there are plenty of examples just in that position room at Georgia that there are examples that people can point to and be like, well, this is someone that, should make you think, a little more fairly than just by looking at their ranking. But in Keelan's case, a lot of the reason he's ranked where he is because nobody really knew about him. He was a late bloomer that didn't play I don't want to say he's a late bloomer. He didn't play a whole lot his sophomore season. And so because of that, there wasn't a whole lot of film on him prior to his junior year. He had a great junior season. He's playing in the same secondary as a guy that's now a 5-star, Jordan Edmonds. And so because of that, Keelin Jones, being a guy that was under-recruited and that people were not as familiar with, starts popping up on tape. And I think that, Georgia in particular, but a lot of other programs that have started recruiting him, Georgia Tech, Florida, South Carolina, Tennessee, schools that have thrown their hat into the ring for Keelin Jones throughout the course of this year, like they start seeing Keelin pop up on Jordan Edmonds' film and they're saying, who's this guy? And so then you do a deep dive on Keelin Jones and you realize he checks every single box that you're looking for. Like, you mentioned it right there, probably closer to 6 foot, but 6 foot, 186 pounds is what I think he last measured in at Georgia. He could play safety. He could play star. This is a guy that has all of the IQ attributes that you look for. We just had Zach Fort on the recruiting show recently talking about, some of the qualities that he brings at safety. I think that Keelin Jones, there's a lot of similarities there between Zach Fort and Keelin Jones. They're not going to be the 6'2", 200 5-pound safety that runs a 4-3. Like, that's just not what they are. But I think Georgia's looking for guys that understand how to play the position, that have the versatility to play either of the two deep safety spots or star. And I think that Keelin Jones is someone that could fit in anywhere. In fact, I don't think that he is being brought in as a, like, you're going to be playing safety or you're going to be playing star. Like, I think he is someone they are bringing in, planning to fully cross-train him at DB, more at safety and star in Travaris Robinson's room than Dante Williams' room. But there's just a lot to really like about this guy. Like, the buzzwords you're going to hear with him: IQ, savvy, nose for the football, like, coach on the field, like some of the cliche stuff that you hear around that type of player. Like, Keelan is going to bring that to Georgia. I also just think, we live in this world now where if you're a 5-star as a sophomore, the dollar figure that you're going to be thinking that you deserve or that you're worth or your value that you bring, it makes this so much more complicated. And I think that Keelan Jones was someone that Georgia offered in January. He comes up on a junior day immediately. He loves it. He comes to like the second or third spring practice that Georgia had in March. He loves it. And really from there, he knew he wanted to be a Georgia Bulldog. This was not a complicated recruitment. This was a guy that knew he wanted to be at Georgia. And Georgia said, you're an in-state guy that checks all of the boxes. And we don't care that you're not the 5-star number one safety or that it took everyone, including Georgia, a little while to recognize your talent. They recognize that talent and they want him in this class. And so, I mean, this has been setting up this way for a while now. Like, this isn't, I think he took that spring practice visit March 15th. And Keelan's told me, like, basically him and his stepdad left that practice and they both knew, like, you want to be at Georgia. It's obvious this is where you want to be. Like, let's just go ahead and get it done. Where I think it becomes interesting is, he's very, very close friends with Alabama commit 5-star cornerback Jordan Edmonds. Georgia wants Jordan Edmonds very badly. He obviously committed to Alabama. Georgia did a lot to hold him off from committing to Alabama originally. I have no clue whatsoever whether Georgia is going to be able to backdoor its way into this Alabama recruitment again. But you now have one of his very good friends committed, and I think Georgia is going to recruit Jordan Edmonds until the end. And I'll just leave it at that.
Georgia now with 6 commits in the 2026 class, 2 defensive backs, the other being Zach Fort, who you mentioned. And yeah, Ben, you talked about, Georgia fans maybe not getting excited about this. Okay, it's a 3-star, that sort of thing. But I don't know if you're sort of where I am. You look at different positions, and on the whole, Georgia has done a great job of evaluating a lot of different positions, especially guys who might be a little bit undervalued when it comes to our recruiting rankings, things like that. But the 2 positions where I would never blink twice, depending on what Georgia does, and Georgia taking a guy, inside linebacker, and really anyone in the secondary, because you think about Kirby Smart and T-Rob and Dante Williams. I mean, they know what they're looking for. I think there's plenty of reason to be excited about this guy, even if you might kind of wonder, okay, this is a 3-star. I think these guys know what they're looking for.
Yeah. Well, and this is one too. Like, I don't think he had a star rating or maybe even a profile. When I first interacted with him, it was probably like June 5th or January 15th range. I don't know that he had a profile with us yet. So again, it's like sometimes we're late on these things. Georgia does its homework and it does a lot of film. Its personnel department, I go on my GM rant. It's like Georgia's got so many people looking at film, determining who players make the most sense for Georgia. Like, Georgia knew about Keelin Jones in the early January range. And I think in many cases, Georgia likes to keep some of these guys quiet because they don't want everyone to be offering them immediately and then being able to get up on visits to everywhere else. And so I think it was a savvy recruitment from Georgia. And again, I think this is just a case of Georgia knows what it wants from its safeties, and Keelin Jones knew what he wants from a football program. And I think it is a perfect marriage.
All right, Ben, let's get into what's really been the talk of college football this weekend, and it is the situation in Knoxville, Tennessee. Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava getting ready to leave Tennessee. Feels like the last really 48 hours, this all kind of came to a head. Nico, it sounds like his representatives are working to get him more money in Knoxville. Whether Tennessee would meet that offer, what exactly happened behind the scenes, we don't know. What we do know is Nico's getting ready to leave Tennessee. and they are going to turn the page. Just all-time bad timing as far as the spring game happening for Tennessee on Saturday. I know Josh Heupel has talked about it since, and I really do want to shout out Go Vols 24/7. Go read there and go read Patrick Brown and all those guys, Wes Rucker, the job they've done writing about this situation. And again, I like plugging this because I did this on Twitter, Ben. A great thing about when you subscribe to Dogs 24/7, you can go check out all their VIP stuff over on the Tennessee site. And better than that, you can look at their message board and see what everybody's saying, what everybody's freaking out about. Because this Nico thing with him moving on, getting ready to go to the portal, is going to be the talk of college football as we go into the spring window. What do you make of this situation with Nico and just what it means for college football in this point in time?
I can't believe this situation played out the way that it did. Like, I can't remember if I said anything on one of our shows recently, but I have talked over the last 2 weeks privately with a lot of people about how it amazes me how stress-free Tennessee seems to make quarterback recruiting look. Like, they made the Nico situation out of high school look so easy. Here's an agreement that you sign and it works out. And they do the same thing by getting George McIntyre, and they have Faison Brandon right now, and they made it look so seamless and so easy. And I said, it just blows my mind that they make it look so easy when, like, Georgia seems to be scrapping and clawing in every single quarterback class ever, and all sorts of chaos has happened with Georgia quarterback recruiting through the years. And all through that time, like since 2021, Georgia's had good quarterback play. So it's like it blows my mind how stress-free it's been for Tennessee. And as it turns out, things aren't always the same on the inside as they appear on the outside, because as stress-free and easy as it seemed like Tennessee made it, clearly the opposite has been happening for at least since December, in terms of them trying to figure out what they consider a fair deal and what Nico Iamaleava and his representatives consider a fair deal. And, it's not a coincidence that it's happening right now. Like, the transfer portal is about to open. If Nico Iamaleava is not getting a place, or, not getting a deal in place with Tennessee, he's obviously going to need to go find a place. So it's happening right now for a reason. Tennessee obviously needs a quarterback next season. You would think, I would assume that George McIntyre or Jake Merklinger are not going to be Tennessee's quarterback next season, but it's just a complicated deal, because it's very easy to sit here and say Nico Iamaleava has not played well enough to warrant asking for more money, which is potentially fair. Like, removing any opinions people have about him, like, it's potentially fair that you could say last season was not a pay raise season for Nico. You could make the case like Tennessee did the right thing, and I think a lot of people around college football are thanking Tennessee today, because it makes their conversations a lot easier when there's proof that teams will just cut bait with people that are asking for too much. So it is very easy to look here and say, Tennessee, Josh Heupel, you did the noble thing. You didn't let a player be above the program. And I respect it. Like, I think that there are smaller, less public examples. Like, honestly, you could even make you could equate how the Carson Beck situation unfolded in December a little bit to this situation too, if we're being fair about it. Like, teams are having to make the decision, how valuable is this player and how valuable is this position, and also what sacrifices does that mean we're going to have to make for the rest of our roster. And whatever conversations happened, Tennessee decided enough was enough, and it is past the point of no return with Nico. Whether Nico was expecting that bluff to be called or not, I have absolutely no idea. Whether he has a backup plan or an out or somewhere that he had already back-channeled an agreement with where he kind of knew he was going to go. I have no idea whether any of that is the case. I am stunned that it got to the point that Tennessee was willing to cut bait with him, because, and I'll talk about this through the Georgia lens, they've got Georgia coming into town week 3. I don't know how many years in the last decade that Tennessee has had a quarterback with more experience than Georgia, with a defense the previous year that actually outperformed Georgia's, with Georgia coming into town to play in Knoxville in a year where their win-loss over-unders are just about the same. It felt like this was the right year for Tennessee to be able to maybe take that next step. Like if you're going to get Georgia, it felt like this was the year. And a lot of people listening to this probably disagree and say, Tennessee's Tennessee and Georgia's Georgia, and that nothing's going to change. And you might be right about that. I don't see a world where Tennessee has a leg up on Georgia without Nico Iamaleava at quarterback. And that, I don't care what you feel about Nico. He's been in the program for 3 years. He was the starting quarterback last year. He did some good things throughout the course of last year. He is going to be more familiar with what Tennessee wants to do than anybody that they're going to be bringing in or anybody that they already have on their roster. And so they became less of a threat. I think that their win-loss total dropped by a win or a win and a half with this Nico news. And so what's fascinating to me is like, it feels like we are in a turning, I don't want to say a turning point. They just made the playoff last year where, Josh Heupel is going to be expected to take that next step for Tennessee fans to feel like he is moving them in the right direction. And it is a bold move to cut bait from your starting quarterback in that stretch. It's where I thought Nico had more leverage than people were giving him credit. Like, yeah, his last season wasn't fantastic. I will say I think that the $4 million thing that everyone keeps throwing out is a bogus number that people are not describing correctly the way that money would have been front loaded or counting towards revenue share. Like it's just a number that everyone is flatly throwing out now. And I think that is irresponsible. I don't think that it's just a matter of we needed 4 million here. It's more complicated than that because of all of the revenue share timing in July 1. And I think it's fascinating for Nico now too, because he's got to get on campus somewhere to be able to get money front loaded if he's trying to make as much money as he was going to be making from Tennessee. So interesting situation where I almost feel like everyone's a loser. Like I feel like Tennessee is worse today than they were when they had Nico. And I feel like Nico is probably not going to be able to make as much money playing for as good of a football program as he just was. So I don't know, not a great situation, but I'm sure people that are, not Tennessee fans are sitting here and this has just been a glorious day. Like if you think about if you're a Florida fan today and you won the national championship on, I don't know, like less than a week ago, and now you're getting to sit there and laugh at one of your biggest football rivals. It's like Florida fans must just be on cloud 9 this week.
And I will say the folks over on the Junkyard, they were enjoying the Tennessee chatter as much as anybody. Ben, you hit on a lot of the big things that I would say. I mean, the thing to me with Nico, the way I look at it is it's kind of two-pronged. And one, sure, you have the right to leave if you don't feel like you're getting paid enough, especially with where we are right now, before the House settlement, before any kind of parameters are kind of put in place. But two, buddy, be careful what you wish for, because you hit on the biggest thing to me. Where are you going to go post-spring? I mean, I can't really think, trying to think back to last year, guys who joined a new team after spring practice and that wound up being successful. I mean, the Georgia example was Jaden Rashada, who, again, was not expected to come in and start. But, I mean, he never was a factor. And by the time we were in the SEC championship game, I mean, Ryan Puglisi had passed him on the depth chart. So it's one of those situations, to me, at this point, there is not an obvious, he's very clearly going there. I want to shout out Matt Zenitz and Chris Hummer, who have been doing some reporting on 24/7 Sports. Said it's not necessarily a slam dunk that it's UCLA or USC. I heard a lot of people talking about UCLA. I don't know where you're going, and I'll plug some of the stuff they had on the Go Vols 24/7. Chris and Matt, they mentioned a Big 12 team. I'm not going to say who it is. It did make me raise my eyebrows a little bit and say, wow. But even then, I don't know that he goes there post-spring and is able to go and flourish and have a really good season. Again, I just don't know how this story for Nico specifically ends well. If you're Tennessee, you got to back channel and get somebody in the portal that is not an SEC quarterback, because an SEC quarterback cannot transfer within the conference at this point in the calendar. Tennessee's going to have to do some work. And again, I think Nico, this is not going to end well for him, just from a standpoint of landing at a competitive team and being able to flourish with that team, having not gone through spring practice.
Now, I will throw out, I'll play the devil's advocate here, because everyone is just crushing Nico and his representatives and his side of it. And I totally get it. And honestly, admirable move by Tennessee to call the bluff and just move on. I'm sure that was the hardest decision that Josh Heupel's had to make since he's been at Tennessee, was how to handle this Nico situation as it's been unfolding. What I will say is, like, there is a world where Nico Iamaleava came into college thinking he was going to be a 3-and-done guy and go have a long NFL career. And I think the more that it's played out, like, that is not as guaranteed to be the case. And are his chances of being a high-level NFL draft pick at Tennessee probably higher than UCLA? I would say yes. It's fair to say that. Or wherever it is that he ends up, I would say yes. There's also a world where this year and next year are the two highest earning years that Nico Iamaleava has in his entire professional career in any profession that he's in. And so, like, if you are his agent and you are his reps, like, and you're trying to maximize or optimize his earning potentials, like, you could be looking at this situation and saying, like, look, I get it. If you look at Tennessee and say, look, you might be a better program, you might be in a position where you can call our bluff, but this might be the last time that I feel like, I'm going to be able to be making $1 million or $1 million plus. Now, again, that might be a loser mentality that I don't think Nico necessarily has, but, like, I think you could look at it and say, look, if we're looking this year and next year, and those are the two the most amount of money that Nico Iamaleava makes any years of his football career, it probably, if you're his agent, like, you're probably doing your job to try and get him his best deal. Now, a lot of people will counter that fairly, I will say, and say, well, if you're his agent, you're trying to set him up to have the best professional career that he could possibly have, which is a fair conversation, and this is probably not the way to go about doing that.
I will say, Ben, some of my favorite podcasting by you is when you counter your own.
I just argue with myself for like 7 minutes. Yeah.
It's great stuff. But again, I really want to encourage y'all to subscribe to Dogs 24/7, because you can go to GoVols 24/7 and follow, one, what happens next with Nico, but two, what Tennessee's going to do. Because I don't know how you feel, Ben. I am very confident they're going to go get somebody in the portal. Who that is, I don't know. But I saw some of the quotes from Patrick and the guys from after Tennessee spring game, and Josh Heupel, I'm just paraphrasing, was saying basically, we have 2 scholarship quarterbacks. We have to go get another quarterback.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because, like, that guy, it's crazy for Georgia. Like, we talk about Georgia's first road SEC game of the year every year in terms of how important it is and difficult it is. And it's like, right now it is April 12th and we really don't even know who that quarterback is going to be that Georgia's going to be facing on the other side. It's a new world we live in. A lot of people hate the world that we live in. I understand. This has been a toxic situation that I do think makes everybody sit back and say, all right, what the hell is going on here? Like, in no world should Nico's going to go down as probably one of the more hated Tennessee players of all time by Tennessee fans. Like, there's no world where that should have happened the way that his high school recruitment went and how much he was, like, the face and future of the program. Like, it's honestly sad. Like, it's sad that we've reached the point that, I mean, that I just can't. I'm at a loss for words because I can't believe that situation with Tennessee and Nico played out the way that it did.
Yeah, I honestly do hate it for Tennessee fans and just fans in general, because think about how much college football has changed in the last 5-10 years, where, at one point it was more of just, man, it's so weird seeing guys leave my team and go play for other teams. And now, and again, we haven't seen a ton of guys do this, but, if you're a Tennessee fan, like I saw a whole lot of Nico jerseys that were on sale on Facebook Marketplace on Saturday afternoon, but it's like, I don't blame them at all for being pissed at Nico. Yeah. And again, he's acting in his own best interest, but, like, that's a tough pill to swallow. And I understand fans being frustrated by, having to endure this when you should be talking about, how the second team running back looked and, how the team looked at the close of the spring.
And look, Nico might not be acting in his own best interest. Like, I think it's very reasonable to think, like, a year from now, we're looking back on it and saying, man, he really screwed that situation up. And not just him. Like, I know it's not like he's singularly making this decision. Like, there are multiple people, representatives involved in helping him make decisions like this. There's also a world where Tennessee's also not operating in their own best interest. Like, I think that's one of the biggest. Kip just got me. Kip just roasted me on social media. I can't even continue my thoughts after that. Like, I'm gonna just have to shut down for the podcast. I'm sorry.
If
For
you got
anybody
to
who's listening and thought I was going to have any more coherent thoughts, which I've had very few so far in this podcast, I am no longer going to be able to do that. Kip just ended my day.
you got to share what he said because now the viewers and listeners are dying to know.
Well, for those that weren't paying attention last episode, we had someone in our Facebook comments let us know that I never let anybody else get a word in, which I'm not. I love to have conversations with people. Sometimes I just get wired. People that know me know once I get going, you got to cut in and stop me or I'm just never going to stop. And Jordan or Kip just put out the pod or quote tweeted this and said, Jordan getting in a word challenge impossible. So I'm letting you get in a word the rest of the podcast because ever since Kip's tweeted this, I haven't stopped talking. So it's only gotten worse ever since he called me out on it.
Yeah, Ben is great, and I love to listen to him talk. And I don't care what anybody says; they can fight you, Ben. I will ride. I'm your
Y'all
ride or
gotta
die.
just start cutting me off. Y'all gotta tell me, shut the hell up, Ben. It's okay. I don't take it personally when people cut in. They're like, all right, it's our turn.
All right, I think we've covered just about everything we need to from G-Day, but I am going to bring up something very important, and I'm going to sort of note where we are as we record this, 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday. We got to talk about the Masters, and as it stands, I got the leaderboard pulled up on my second screen. Was that the whole reason I had a second screen? Mind your own business. That's not important. Rory McIlroy right now through 16, 12 under, 6 under on the day. Ben, I'm going to put you on the spot. Does he get this thing done? Is he gonna win this thing on Sunday afternoon?
As we've been recording this, I had someone reach out and say, this is Rory's tournament to lose. And I replied and I said, nobody loves losing tournaments that are Rory's tournaments to lose more than Rory. So I don't want to say that I think he's got it, but I'll say this. If he blows another 4-stroke lead on Sunday at a major or especially at Augusta National, I don't know how you mentally recover from it, but it does go to show he's playing unbelievable out of his mind golf right now. I mean, he had a 4-over stretch in 3 holes on Thursday, and he's leading this golf tournament by 4. So I do think he's playing the best golf in the world right now, and I think he's going to win, but I don't want to put that on him.
I'm going to say that he gets it done, and in no way am I jinxing Rory McIlroy on Saturday night. All right, we're going to wrap up the episode right there. I appreciate Ben for hopping on. I appreciate everyone who watched or listened to this live, everyone who is watching or listening to it after the fact. Go subscribe to Dogs247.com. Again, 50% off sale that's going to end soon. Need to jump on that so you can follow along with everything that is going on through the rest of the off season. Go to our YouTube, Dogs247. Got Kirby Smart interview after the G-Day game. We'll have players on there as well shortly. Go to our TikTok. We'll have a lot of content, especially now with spring practice done, a lot more time to kind of play around with some of our videos and do some fun stuff over there. So we will wrap up this podcast episode right there. For Ben Wolk, I'm Jordan Hill. Until next time, take care, everybody.